Hey there and welcome to PHLEARN. My name is Aaron Nace and today we are fixing common problems with clothing. Things like bunching up and weird shapes and just showing all the stuff that kind of makes your image look worse. We got a great tutorial for you. Let's jump into Photoshop. So here's our sample image for today, and this is where we're going to be focusing on this area right here. As you can see, it just looks a little bit funky. Now, if you guys want to follow along, you can download this sample image and the PSD on PHLEARN.com, totally free. Just follow the link right down below. So here's how we're getting started. I'm going to click here on our background layer, and we're going to hit Control or Command J. That's going to duplicate this layer. Now we're going to right click on this layer and go all the way down to where it says Convert to a Smart Object. This is going to allow me to use smart filters. We're going to use Liquify, and it's going to make it so I can undo this filter at any time. Okay, so we have our layer one. It's a smart object. You can see that right here with the little smart object icon. Now we're going to go up here to Filter. There we go. And we're going to go down to where it says Liquify. Now, Liquify is one of your best friends in Photoshop. You can push and pull pixels all you want. It's incredibly cool. So let's go ahead and zoom in to our picture a little bit. Hold spacebar down to kind of move around. Now I'm going to grab this tool up in the very top left. This is the Forward Warp tool. Basically, it allows you to push and pull pixels around. So you can make it bigger using your open and close brackets there. Now, up here at the very top right, we have some brush tool options. So you can change your size, you can change your pressure, density, and rate. We're just going to keep these close to our basic settings. So your size, you want to adjust to be about the size of the object you want to move around. Okay, don't make it too small or it tends to look a little bit jagged. There we go. Pressure, we're just going to keep that relatively low. We don't need to make huge changes at the same time. And density is whether it affects just towards the center or all the way towards the edges of wherever you're pressing. But in this case, all we have to do is simply click here and start dragging in this direction. Here we go. So what we want to do, my goal here is to kind of reshape this area of clothing just a little bit. Now, we're going to use our open and close brackets to change our brush size. So we're just going to make it a little bit smaller if you want to affect a smaller area, and larger if you want to affect a larger area. There we go. Now, of course, you can use Liquify in a lot of different ways. People use it to change facial expressions and to alter other shapes, including people. I like to use it for clothing because clothing just has a weird tendency to kind of like bunch up and look a little bit kind of just sloppy in general. And I find that kind of working with and you know, making clothing just a little bit more uniform can make a big difference. All right. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about the rest of the photo here. This area is really all I'm interested in. Now, check this out. There's a cool button right down here that says Brush Reconstruct Option. So you can click on this Reconstruct here, and then this is one of my favorite things to do. Right where it says Revert Reconstruction, you can just click and drag this left and right to kind of see what you've done already. All right, we're going to go and hit OK, and then hit OK on the very bottom of the screen. Okay, so we have our Liquify, and you can see right here is a smart filter. I can click this eyeball to turn that off and on at any time. Now, my job is not done here, okay? Like, yes, we did some reshaping, but like the shape and the structure and things like that still doesn't look that good. We got this weird thing sticking out over there, and you'll also notice if you push and pull pixels too much with the Liquify tool, you'll get what looks like just stretched pixels, okay? You can see like over here, everything looks nice and normal, but over here it just looks stretched and kind of weird. But don't worry, there's fixes for all of this stuff. So that's what we're gonna do right now. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and create a new layer right above all of this, and we're gonna start in with our clone stamp tool. So let's hit S for the clone stamp tool. Now with our clone stamp tool, we had a couple of settings we need to pay attention to. Right here on the very top, make sure it says sample current and below. That's gonna let you do this on a new layer, okay? Now we're gonna keep our opacity at 100% and everything looks good. So let's go ahead and hold Alt or Option to sample, and then we're just gonna simply paint over these areas. So I'm sampling the area that I want to basically copy. The clone stamp tool is basically like a direct copy. It'll allow you to just copy from one area to another, and in this case, I'm just simply copying over the stuff we don't really want. Okay, now we have a couple options because obviously all of this kind of just looks a little bit weird. So the next thing I want to do, let's go ahead and create a new layer. S for the clone stamp tool. I'm going to just clone stamp this. I'm going to hold Alt or Option to sample this area down here. Okay, and then I'm just going to paint it right over here on this side here. Keep in mind I'm on a new layer. There we go. So I can move this around at any time. Okay, now let's hit V for the move tool, and I can click and drag. There we go, and hit Controller Command T. There we go, and just kind of like warp this right into place there. So I'm kind of just matching this with the original. There we go. Hit Enter there with the original sweater to kind of blend everything together. Now let's click right down here on our layer mask icon. B for the brush tool, and I'm just going to paint with black right here. Let's just make a smaller brush there. I'm just going to, there we go, paint black right there. And you can see we fixed a relatively large area pretty quickly, simply by clone stamping or copying from one area to another. Looking good. Now we're going to continue on up this sleeve just a little bit. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. S for the clone stamp tool, and I'm going to sample right here, and we're just going to simply paint over these little areas that we don't really need. Okay. Again, my goal is to just kind of clean all this up. It's just kind of a little bit messy, and you're going to see we can do quite a bit to clean it up. So I'm actually ready, like this is looking okay, but I'm actually ready to bring in Liquify Tool one more time. Now let's take a look at our layers. I've done all these layers above my original Liquify. So if I wanted to go back here and redo the Liquify on this layer, I could do that, but the problem is all this stuff is on top of that. So it would continue to cover any changes that I made there. So if you ever get to this point, what you want to do is create a new stamp visible layer. Here's how you do it. I'm going to create a new layer just by clicking here on the new layer icon. So we have a new layer, layer 5. We're going to go to Image and down here to Apply Image. Okay. And then here we just want to make it say Merge, Layers Merge. It basically just takes a copy of everything that you can see and puts it on a new layer. That's going to allow you to do Liquify Tool again. So let's hit OK there. Looking pretty good. Now I'm going to just hit M for the marquee tool. We're just going to click and drag to select this area because that's really the only area I need to affect with my Liquify. Okay, we're going to go back to Filter and then down here to Liquify. There we go. And now we can just do this once more. I'm just going to turn off my mouse. There we go, my mouse halo real quick so I can see what I'm doing. But we're just going to continue to push and pull this around. Now I'm totally, aware that our pixels aren't looking that great. A lot of these pixels look kind of stretched, and we do have some cleanup work. Mostly at this point, I'm just concerned with the overall shape of things because I can always change the texture at any point in time. That's actually really, really easy to do. There we go. Let's just bring this right around there. All right, so this is literally just like pushing and pulling pixels around. There we go. All right, that looks good. Again, I can hit this Reconstruct option. There we go, and slide this back and forth so we can see what we're doing there. Let's hit OK there, and then hit OK at the bottom. All right, so there's our before and after with that. Now we're going to go back in and do a little bit more work right here to kind of clean up this texture. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. Just click here on your new layer icon. And now we're going to use our healing brush tool to kind of copy some texture from one area to another. So let's go to our healing brush tool. It's located right over here. Looks like a band-aid. Now you have your spot healing brush tool, which will basically choose your sample area for you. In this case, we want to choose a sample area ourselves, so we're going to use the regular healing brush tool. There we go. Now let's hold Alt or Option to sample the area that we want. Like this texture over here looks pretty good, right? So hold Alt or Option, click on that, and then we're just going to sample, basically just paint over top of the texture that doesn't really look that good. So it's going to take the nice texture from the right-hand side and replace the not so nice texture that we have on the left-hand side. There we go. So we're going to be using this as well as the clone stamp tool to just kind of like fix all of this area. And as you can see, it's like little by little, right? So focusing on, fixing the shape, and now we're focusing on the texture. There we go. So this is the big lesson here, is if you ever need to like totally change the text or like the shape of your object, don't worry if it changes the texture, because the spot healing brush tool or the regular healing brush tool is really, really well suited for that. Okay, then you can kind of come in with your clone stamp tool, S for the clone stamp tool, and bring in all these little details. Fantastic, that's looking really good. We'll go ahead and bring that all the way up to there. And just lighten this up. And then I'm gonna sample this darker area and then just paint a little bit over here to kind of like bring in the shadow. It's kind of fun. It's like painting, you know, in a computer. How crazy. All right, so all you can see, this is looking much better, right? The texture looks a lot more natural. I'm much happier with this. I think we're looking really good on our way. So let's go ahead and zoom out here. All right, there we go. We can continue to work on that, fix it, maybe just make this area a little bit darker. Again, all this stuff is just kind of like how much time and energy and love you put into it, right? But anything is possible in Photoshop. And in life in general. Hey, there we go. Cool. Looking pretty good. All right, so now we have this area, kind of like fixed that little texture issue, looking good. I still have some weird stuff going on right here. So again, it's not a big deal. If we want to just create a new layer, go to image and then down here to apply image. Where are you? There we go. And then you can hit layer merge and hit OK again. So you can make as many of these as you want. And if you need to, like to save file size, you can just merge all this together later on. I'm gonna keep all these files together because you can download this exact sample file, but you can always merge things together. But you know, the goal here is that you're never really like stuck with anything you've done. You can continue to work over and over and make a lot of new layers. Okay, so again, let's go ahead and sample this area. We're gonna go to filter and down here to liquify once more. There we go. And now this time we're just gonna focus on this area. And I probably could have done all this with one liquify, but I just like didn't really see all this stuff. Like I was focusing on the bigger stuff that was like really bothering me, and like this small stuff just didn't really catch my eye. And that's kind of just how things go sometimes, you know. It's like when you're cleaning your house, you start with all the big stuff and then you're like, oh my God, the floorboards are dusty. But you didn't see that if there was a pile of dishes in the sink, right? So it's kind of like how it goes with the retouching too. There we go. So let's go ahead and hit OK here on the bottom and just turn that off and on. So little fixes. I'm just gonna go ahead and group everything that we've done up until now, Controller Command G, and then let's just turn this off and on. So you can see like, yeah, quite a bit of progress already. But we're still not done. I wanna fix this up. It's not looking that great yet. So let's go ahead and create a new layer on top of all of that. And I'm gonna hit J for the regular healing brush tool. And let's see if I can just copy like a little bit of a nicer texture right over here. So I'm gonna sample this area down here, Alt or Option to sample that. And then we're just gonna simply paint over here. And that's gonna allow us to have a nicer texture. There we go. Up in this area where it just kind of looked like stretched out and didn't really look that good. Okay, if we need to, I'm gonna go with my clone stamp tool. We're gonna just sample right down here and then paint over here, get us a nice looking edge. Oh, that didn't look good. Let's just sample right next to it. There we go. Because my goal here is to do an actual good job at this. You know, we want it to look like really, really good. Now, let's go ahead and create a new layer. I'm gonna hold S for this, S for the clone stamp tool, hold Alt or Option to sample, okay? And then we're just gonna bring this edge all the way up there till it looks good. There we go. All right, bring this in, make sure we have, you know, nice definition there on the edge. All this with the clone stamp tool. And then I want to bring it like, basically I want to create like a little closure right there. So we're going to create a new layer, S for the clone stamp tool again. Let's sample this area. I'm just going to paint it right over here. Okay, it really doesn't matter where you paint this because I'm going to wind up transforming it. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now, because I'm on a new layer, that's the only thing on this layer, I can hit Controller Command T for transform and I can just move this around. I can right click and go down to where it says warp, okay? And then I can just kind of warp this into place. So even though it was a totally different shape, I can just warp this and have it serve the purpose that I need. Let's hit that checkbox up at the very top, put a layer mask on there, and then we're just going to paint black on our layer mask to allow these to blend together. Because really what I want, there we go, is kind of like a natural like edge that kind of goes out there, right? There we go. And that's looking pretty good. Let's create a new layer on here, J for the regular healing brush tool. Let's sample this area here and go ahead and just clean up this texture a little bit, right? So it's, you know, shape and color and texture, that makes up a good deal of what we actually need for our images. There we go. All right. So we can see we're just kind of like slowly patching it in, you know, one little bit at a time. And if you need to do any blending, you can always grab the clone stamp tool and then paint with a lower flow or a lower opacity. All right, there we go. And we're just gonna kind of bring this in. So it's gonna be a little bit lighter right up there. I'm just using the clone stamp tool right now, sampling and kind of painting these areas in. All right, this is so cool. You can see it's a process, you know, it's not just like, hey, hit this button and all your problems are gone. If only life were like that. But, you know, little by little, we are able to make huge, huge changes. And I kind of purposely chose something that was like pretty difficult, as you could probably see. Like this was not some like super easy, you know, fix it with just one brush stroke type of thing. This is a more complex problem that requires, you know, a more complex solution. But I think we're looking really, really good. All right. Now this area still texture-wise like doesn't look that great. So let's create a new layer, J for the healing brush tool, and I can copy texture from down here, like Alt or Option click down there, and kind of fill it in. You know, it's all just texture, right? So you want to find something that's similar. Don't sample from like a dark area and paint up there, because a dark area will have a different amount of contrast than a light area. So you can see this is light. I want to sample from another light area right up there. There we go. Fantastic. And because this is on new layers, you can just keep going. There's no real way to mess your image up because I still have all my original image details. I'm creating new layers. I haven't affected my original image at all. So there we go. You can see just kind of like bringing in new texture there and cleaning all of that up. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna create a new layer here, and then we're just gonna use our brush tool. We're just gonna sample this color, change my layer blend mode from normal. We're gonna go right down to here where it says soft light. Okay, and then I'm just gonna paint here, and that's gonna like make this a little bit darker. There we go. You know what, I'm just gonna paint with white and black. So let's just paint with black. This is like a dodge and burn a little bit. So we're gonna paint with black like just a little bit. There we go. Paint with white a little bit here. Just to kind of even out the light and dark patches and make the clothing just a little bit more uniform. There we go. I think it's looking pretty good. I gotta say, making progress. There we go. All right, so a little dodge and burn on there just kind of like brings all that back together again. I'm just gonna make this whole area just a little bit darker. Let's grab a curves adjustment layer. So curves adjustment layer, we're gonna just bring this down a little bit, okay? And then I'm gonna grab my red channel and bring that up a little bit. Just gonna put a tiny bit of red. Let's hit Control or Command I. It's gonna invert the layer mask. So now I'll just use my brush tool to kind of paint it in where I want it to go. There we go. Fantastic. Maybe I put like a little bit too much red. It's always going to be like kind of a balance, you know, because when you make things lighter and darker, it's always going to affect color too. So I want to just see, you know, do as good of a job as I can to color balance that. There we go. That actually looks pretty good. So it's just turn that off and on. There we go. Maybe it just made it a little bit too blue. Turn that off and on, and then we can kind of just, there we go. That's looking really, really good. All right. Now at this point, like, we are pretty much done. I mean, we can go in here and do a little bit more changes. Let's go ahead. I'm going to do that second group. There we go. So let's see, that's the second group that we made there. Whoa, this is back where we were. So that's our before. That's before we did anything, and this is where we're at now. That's a huge, huge change. Can you believe it? I think it looks really good. I just want to bring this down. I'm not like in love with how that looks. I think it could look a little bit better. So let's just go ahead and bring that down there. Fantastic. And just bring it all the way down to there. Okay, and then bring this over top of it. And again, this is just with the clone tool, or the clone stamp tool. The clone stool, oh boy. The clone stamp tool. Fantastic. So you can see it's incredibly powerful. Just copy areas, you know, from one to another, and you can basically just completely recreate an entire area. Now we're focusing on clothing here. Obviously you could do this with any part of your image, but I just wanted to show you how big of a difference you can make on an image overall, even when cleaning up like a little area like a sleeve. Let's just put that in that group there. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out. I'm totally happy with this. Don't forget, you guys can download this PSD. So let's take a look at the before and after here. I'm just click on these eyeballs here. We're just gonna turn them off and back on. Let's go ahead and zoom back in there, off and back on again. Like really, all of this was done with the Liquify tool, the clone stamp tool, and the healing brush tool. Just those three tools, you can make a huge difference in your images. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, hit that subscribe button. We'll send you free tutorials. Give us a big thumbs up. It helps with that YouTube algorithm. And if you have anything you want to see, let us know in a comment right down below. Thanks again, and I'll learn you later. Bye, everyone.